All right, we're gonna get started here. Can everybody hear me? I got some repeat names in here. Great to see you guys. Awesome. Thank you guys for being very patient with me yesterday. I had some last minute schedule changes and I appreciate you guys kind of being flexible with me. It's been kind of a crazy week. So I appreciate it. And I know the live lectures for this class are a little sporadic as far as not being on the same day all the time and the same time. I'm trying to work through some things in the next 3 weeks. So I appreciate you guys kind of being flexible with me. And if you can't make it in here, no big deal. That's kind of like the great thing about being an online student is you could just, access the recording. So how is everybody today? Pretty good. Great to see you guys. Some of you guys are, I've had you in past classes. So it's good to see. Best day of your life. Uh-oh. That's a good thing. Good to see you, Lily. Marla, Michael. You guys have to catch me up on what's going on with you guys. Welcome to DES380. Oh, Michael's having a great day. This is Advanced Vector Illustration class. This is I think, a really, really fun class. I love teaching this class. And I say that about a few of them, but this is definitely one of them I think you guys will enjoy for sure. Yeah, Lily, your pups aren't so little anymore. I think I got your email, but I didn't check out the pictures yet, so I'll have to look at that. Okay, so for those of you who have not had me, my name is April Biss, and you can just call me by my first name. April's fine. And I've been actually teaching for independence for almost 6 years now, so it's been, it's been a great ride so far. It doesn't even seem like 6 years, but I've taught probably well over 20 classes here. And I just, I love it. I love what I do. I love having you guys as students inspiring me. You guys, I try to inspire you guys, but you guys definitely inspire me as well. So, this is, why I do what I do. So, yeah, that long. And I've been working in the industry for over 18 years. So I have a lot of experience in advertising agencies, publication companies. I also I own my own freelance company, and I'm still practicing in that as well. I just finished a book cover for an author. Yeah, so still moving and grooving. But just a little bit about me. I'm pretty much a free spirit. I like to just hang out with my friends. I have a 4-year-old little girl. She just is the light of my life. And we're just living here in Pittsburgh, PA. I'm from Pittsburgh. I've lived in Ohio. I've lived in Tampa, Florida. So it's not like I've been here all my life, but it's great to be back here with friends and family for sure. All right. So as we go forward here, like I said, just check, and I'll show you here. Let me share Canvas here, because I know most of you guys who are logged in now saw this, because you have to go to the live session area. But there, you may want to kind of look at this often if you don't remember when the lectures are, because they're not going to be on the same days and same times. So, you might go in here and be like, okay, what's going on here? Some days are different, some times are different. So definitely check out every week, when our lectures are. Keeps you on your toes, right? Yeah, unfortunately, I actually went through, and this is a little bit more personal information, I went through a divorce recently, so I'm kind of working around a custody schedule. So that's kind of where I'm going with work and everything. So it's just one of those things, yeah. But it's all good. It's all positive. Everything's fine, and it's just kind of working the schedule out. My ex-husband actually is a professor as well, so he started his classes this week. So we're kind of trying to work together on this. So that's kind of why it's a little crazy, because typically I usually only have it on the same days, same times every week. So it's not so crazy all the time for you guys. Exactly. It's called life, right? It's all good though. All positive. So All right, so just a little bit about me too. If you want to read my bio is in here, and also my contact information as well. So definitely can check that out if you want to kind of contact me in any way. That's actually my cell phone number. So feel free to text me if you need to get a hold of me. I'm usually pretty good at getting back to you guys, as soon as possible, but feel free to contact me if you guys have any issues or just, whatever concerns. All right, everybody else, you guys are pretty well versed on the Canvas navigation here. You know kind of where to find the Student Success Center and the library and the Shark academic resources. So I'm not going to dig into that too much, but just know that that's there for you guys. And also, don't forget the syllabus. Yeah, the syllabus is here. What's neat about the syllabus is you can actually, let's see here. Go through here. There's, I think it's under, it's under course information. There we go. There's actually an outline for the class in the course information page here, just like an outline of what we'll be doing. So week 1, it breaks it down into A and B sections here. So for example, week 1, we'll be doing Illustrator workflow aids, keyboard shortcuts, for example, and then B, vector illustration styles, so vector line work art, custom gradient meshes, and flat illustration styles. But I just think this is kind of neat because then it also goes into even deeper breakdown of how much time you should be really spending on each of these sections here. So live lecture, 4 hours a week, reading, discussion, so on and so forth. So it's in class and outside of class to help you time manage, your week here. And then it goes into grading and all that good stuff. So definitely check that out. Also, another thing that you guys definitely benefit from, I would hope so, is if you go into modules, and mine probably looks a little different than yours because I have a little bit more in my setup here, but if you go to modules and you go to your course media, you guys have really amazing supplemental resources in here, required readings, and also lynda.com videos. So you have required playlists that you should be watching each week. So week 1 here is the Adobe Pen Tool Mastery, and the pen tool can be a little tricky at first. So these are definitely some great resources in here to help you guys, kind of go forward if you're having issues. And let's see, here's optional supplemental resources as well for week. So a lot of stuff in week 1 here. This is all week 1. You can definitely check out. And then it goes into week 2 and so on and so forth. So definitely make sure you're checking that out. And also the daily checkpoints are great. They're really great supplemental resources too, because they make you really think about a lot of things within the class relative to what we're going to be learning. And then you get extra credit for it. So, I mean, why not do it every week, right? That's just, that's awesome. Kind of all adds up. So you're learning and you're getting points hopefully too. All right. We all have deadlines, and you guys just finished a mod. You guys are going right into it again. Not much time in between, right? How many of you guys have 2 classes this mod? Marla, you do? Finally, only 1 for Lily. Okay, so this is your only class. Okay. Oh, that's cool. That'll be a nice mix there, Marla. Well, good. Yeah, some of you guys, I find that a lot of you guys do have 2 classes, but it's nice whenever it kind of evens out with a design class and like another, kind of a non-design class kind of balances out sometimes. So good. All right. Well, just make sure that you're getting in your work on time, because especially in these types of classes, they're condensed. So you're not doing an 8-week class or a 12-week class or 11-week class like a typical college would. it's more condensed. So that's why the deadlines are so much more important, because especially as a design student, you need that time in between to work on, you know, especially if there's a continuation of a project, you need that process time to build up, revise, rework, and, you know, kind of do your design processes. So it's really important to get your stuff in, not just because it's the deadline, because it's good to get into that habit anyway, but it's also good for the whole process too. So make sure you're getting in your week 1 work before Saturday. This Saturday coming up here, discussion 1 will need to be posted by Wednesday by midnight, so tomorrow. And we will be meeting tomorrow. If you are my time, which is Eastern Standard Time, it'll be at 10 o'clock. So we'll be meeting really early tomorrow. But so, you know, as long as you post your initial discussion post by midnight tomorrow night, you're good. Okay, let me fast forward here because I actually forgot to change out those slides. Okay, so the objectives for this week. So we're in week 1, you guys. Week 1 starting now. Some of the things that you'll be walking away from this week is utilizing 2 advanced features of Illustrator's pen tool. Apply custom gradient mesh to give flat artwork dimension. Define and apply 3 drawing styles with Illustrator, line, flat, 3D. And then discuss 2 features within Illustrator to add workflow. So we will be really kind of, you know, getting down to the basics in Illustrator. But before we go on, I want to know from you guys, on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you guys using Illustrator? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little early, but 1 being not very, and then 5 being very. Marla, you said 5, very good. Lily, pretty comfortable. 5, okay, good. So you guys are pretty comfortable with, what about the pen tool? You guys say 1 to 5. Michael's pretty good at that, okay. Michael, were you the one that posted your introduction, and you were working with Illustrator for a while with graffiti art, correct? I haven't responded to that, but I did read that. And you posted your work, right? Like an example. Yes, okay. Very good. Yeah, so yeah, I could see where you are a little bit more experienced with that. That's great. Great, awesome. So a lot of this, I like to ask this because sometimes I don't know exactly where everybody is, and I still don't, because there's a lot of people in this class. So there might be people who are maybe on the lower end of the scale, and they're not very, you know, comfortable using Illustrator. So some of the things that you might hear tonight are a little bit more of a refresher for those of you who are more experienced in it. Just kind of, you know, kind of be patient, because we do have to go over some basic information here. So that's great if you're, you know, if you're more experienced with that. All right. Okay, thanks all. Lily, we'll miss you. You coming tomorrow? You can watch the recording. Okay, awesome. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so as we go forward this week, we are going to be doing some really interesting projects, and I'm going to break it down. So today we're going to go over your assignment 1 and your discussion 1, and then tomorrow we're going to go over your assessment 1. All right. Sorry, I got kind of thrown off there. Okay, so let's talk about, actually, let's go into your discussion first. I think that would probably be the best thing to do. Let's talk about the discussion, see if you guys have any questions, and then we can go forward into the review here. Did you guys have any questions so far, just as we get started here? I know it's you know, we're just starting, so you might not have too many questions. And like I said, a lot of this stuff might be review at first, but, you know, kind of bear with me here. All right, some of you guys already got this discussion started, which is great. Don't forget your introduction as well. I didn't show it in here, but introduce yourself. I know some of you guys already did, and I'm definitely gonna go in there and read all of yours and respond tonight. So make sure you're doing that, because you never know. You might, even though you might know each other, it's good to kind of, I might not know you. So, I want to know what your background is, who you are as a person. And, we're online, so it's harder to really somewhat connect in that human way because we're not physically in the same classroom together. So, just sharing information, whatever information that you want to share about yourself is great, because we can all learn about each other. And then if I see you again in the future, in classes, we can, keep in touch and network. It's all good. It's kind of amazing how networking, even with alumni, can really open up some opportunities. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, awesome, Marla. All right, so illustration workflow. I'm not going to read through this, but basically that's kind of what we're talking about in this discussion here. So kind of the workflow, how to kind of streamline doing shortcuts to kind of help you as a designer to be more efficient, because time is money. When I worked at ad agencies, they billed by the minute sometimes. So the efficiency part of it was so important, because you didn't want to sit there and work on a project for 8 hours that may have only taken 2 hours or whatever, because you're obviously going to be not billing that client if it really shouldn't have taken that much money, because they're being billed hourly. So you really have to make sure you're not wasting not only the client's time, but also who you're working for and their time as well. So the shortcuts and the efficiency process part of this is what we're going to be talking about in this discussion. So the prompt here says, for the discussion this week, we are going to create a scenario. So you are a professional designer working in a small company. The projects you complete are primarily done in Illustrator. Today, you are tasked with creating multiple versions of a label where the overall size, palette, concept, and layout stays the same, but the color application, visuals, and words change. Okay. So you'll be doing multiple versions of a label. Your boss would like you to employ methods to create great time savings because you are on an extremely tight deadline. Explore ways to increase the efficiency and production speed within Illustrator. Keyboard shortcuts and custom workspaces are just the beginning. So find 2 additional workflow aids to increase productivity you could use in the scenario above. Define both the workflow aids, the processes they are enhancing, and why you feel they are good solutions. If you have used the features you are describing, please share your experiences and how it has helped you become an Illustrator power user. So for your citations, you might use articles that discuss Illustrator workflow concerns and solutions. You can also find articles from experts that suggest other helpful shortcuts and production tips. All right. Don't forget to hit upon the reply requirements down below here. We all kind of should be familiar with that. But basically, you're going to be, if you don't know the shortcuts, obviously you're going to be researching it for this discussion. So you might, be enlightened by some techniques. Can anybody think of anything that comes in their mind right now, or maybe discussed already, that could be helpful? You always say shortcuts, so keyboard shortcuts, which, is great to, that's one of the things I think when you work as a designer, you start to, it's almost like, when you learn how to type for the first time and you memorize those keys for the letters. It's kind of like that when you're designing and you're doing a lot of work and you're under pressure, so, you get to know the keyboard in a totally new way with like shortcut keys. Using the workspace for the project, good. Layer names. Okay. Yeah, there's like all kinds of different ways that you can cut corners, and save time and energy using different things in accessible in Illustrator. So I want you guys to really research that, find out, two, additional workflow aids to increase your productivity that you can use in the scenario above. Workflow aids. Okay. Some windows open when working. Okay, good. Yes, great. Yeah, you don't think about those kind of things. You think more so about the, excuse me, tools within Illustrator. Excuse me. But you don't think about, the actual computer you're working on and how you can kind of help the speed of things. Because, you could be working on a really big project that has, I'm coming off a cold, sorry, that has a lot of, there's a lot of detail in it. So of course your computer is taking up a lot of memory to run this program. So closing out any windows that you are in outside of Illustrator is probably a good thing. Let me grab some water here, guys. Hold on. Okay. I'm gonna be sitting here coughing on the mic here. All right. So, any questions about this? I don't really want to give up too much information because I want you guys to really research this. Here's a link here you can click on. Okay. That will give you a list of shortcuts to take a look at. And keep in mind that, whatever computer that you're on, whether it be Mac or Windows, go by what's under the columns for your computer. But what's neat about this is you can actually download it too, print it out if you want. But it goes with each shortcut for your Mac and PC. Object menu, path for pen tool, align, arrange. There's all kinds of different shortcut keys. And once you start doing, practicing and doing it a lot, you'll definitely remember these off by heart. So definitely check that out. All right. So just don't forget to respond to at least 2 other peers on separate days for possible full credit as well. Oops, get this bigger here. Sorry, guys. All right, so let's go forward with the review here. And again, kind of sit tight here if this is kind of fundamental for some of you. So the basic Illustrator overview, we're going to talk about what are vector and raster images, differences between vector-based and raster-based images, pros and cons of vector versus raster. Then we're going to look at examples of vector versus raster-based images. So what is the difference between vector and raster? Can anybody tell me? Pixels. Okay, which one is more pixel dependent? Which program would you say, would it be vector or raster is more pixel dependent? You said raster, yep. So the difference is raster is pixel, vector is mathematical, exactly. So that's exactly what it is. So you got vector versus raster. So that's the differences. We're going to take a look at the pros and cons. All right, so what are vector-based images? You guys basically summed it up perfectly there, Michael. Vector-based images are similar to geometric diagrams and use points and lines. So the word vector actually is a synonym for line. So kind of just kind of interesting there. The image quality in vector-based graphics does not depend on the dots per inch of the output device. So that's why you can blow it up as big as you possibly can. You will never see any pixels in it. The picture on the right there is showing you a vector-based graphic. On the left, where it's black and white, that's the outlines of the original flower there. So the lines, dots, and functions used in the development of the vector-based graphics are called primitives. Vector graphics is most commonly done in programs such as Illustrator. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Freehand, CorelDRAW. Those are like older programs. Flash, Inkscape, Fireworks, or other vector illustration programs. I know when I was going through my undergrad, we learned both Illustrator and Freehand. Maybe you kind of played around with the other ones. So it's not just Illustrator. Being a vector-based program, there are others as well. So the pros of vector-based images: save file sizes are smaller, so they're not as large. Conversion from vector to raster is easier. So if you want to convert from a vector to raster, it just is an easier process. And resolution independent, meaning it doesn't rely on any resolution as far as dots per inch is concerned. So you can blow up, again, a logo bigger than a billboard and it'll still be very, very sharp. The cons of vector-based images or vector files do not support photographic imagery well and often can be problematic for cross-platform exchange. So, you know, if you're doing any type of photo manipulation in terms of color changes or any type of photo manipulation in regards to that, it doesn't really, in Illustrator, in this vector-based programs, there's not really like, you know, it's not the best place to go to do that because it's not really, you're not changing pixels, you're dealing with lines. So some examples of some vector-based images, and some of them look, you know, definitely, they look like illustrations. Some images that are very, that look like an actual photograph, but our illustrations can be done also, photorealistic, I should say. Illustrations are done, can be done in Illustrator as well. So you have some, you know, some options, different styles and different looks. Also, typography is great to do, you know, kind of play around with typography in vector-based programs, just like logos, because you're not going to get any type of pixelization. So if you're, say, not even a logo, but say you're kind of stylizing a headline of some sort, that's the best way to go. So we talked about vector, what are raster-based or bitmap images? And you guys pretty much summed it up as well. They're resolution dependent. So they are made of pixels. So you can see that picture there zoomed in. You can see the pixels made up of that picture of that cat. So a pixel is a single point or the smallest single component in a display device. Each pixel is a tiny square with assigned color value. They are created using a grid of pixels to define the image. The pros of a raster-based image: raster files handles the features of photographs very well as a general rule, and raster can handle other effects very well and much easier. They're talking about effects there. The cons is the resolution dependent. So you might have pixelization if it's, you know, if the image is blown up too far past the resolution size. Raster files can be very large if there is a large amount of detail and pixels in an image. So the actual file sizes can be large. And then raster conversion to vector is much more difficult. Here's some examples of raster-based images, and you can see here a photograph on the left that I took. In the middle is again, photo illustration, but you know, it looks more almost realistic in a way, done in a raster-based program. And then on the right there is just a screenshot of a website because that's considered raster-based. Okay, vector versus raster. So here's a really great example, close-up comparisons with type and also just a regular shape done in both vector and raster programs. So in raster programs, you can get pixelization even on type. Vector, you won't. So you can kind of see the differences there. All right, the pen tool. A lot of you guys seem very comfortable with this, which is great. Pen tool has some, you know, once you get comfortable with the pen tool, it is definitely totally different when you started learning it because it can be kind of tricky. The pen tool shortcut key is the letter P, and you click on the artboard to create paths with straight segments. Click and drag to create paths with Bezier curves. So you can create these curves with the little handlebars that you can kind of manipulate to refine the curved line. You also have the add anchor point tool. So you have the plus sign, and I can show you where this is at when we open Illustrator up. You can click on a path segment to add anchor points. So you can actually select that anchor tool, add anchor tool, to add those little segments onto your path. There's also a delete anchor point tool. Sorry guys, I just got a phone call. Click on an anchor point to remove from the path. So if you say accidentally put too many points on your path, you can delete them. And you know, I always like to say the less amount of anchor points that you have, the better off that your line will be, much smoother. But you get to that point eventually when you start to really learn how to use the pen tool. At first, you might put a lot of vector points, but then you kind of refine it as you go forward, and it just kind of gets easier as you use it. But there is a delete anchor point, so you can definitely take out anchor points if you accidentally added too many. There's a convert anchor point as well, and I'll show you where this is at too in Illustrator once we get there. It's Shift plus C is the shortcut key. So you're going to click on an anchor point, so the little square on the line, and you're going to drag to create the Bezier handles where there were none. So you can actually create a curved point if you need that to be converted into an actual curved point. Click on an anchor point with handles to remove them as well. You can pull them in, and I can show you how to do that. There's also the scissors tool, which if you hit the letter C on your keyboard, it's not part of the pen tool group, but definitely associated with it. So you can click on a path segment to divide it into two paths. And it is what it is. So it's like scissors, you cut it, so it's going to cut that line. All right, the pen tool takes on different forms depending on what you're doing when you're using it. Oh, I see somebody popped up their webcam there. Hello. Nice to see your face. Each one intuitively makes you aware of the action you're about to perform. No, you're fine, Marla. It's good to see you guys. So what they're saying here, and I can show you when we go into Illustrator, is your pen will, when you're doing the path, so when you're clicking onto your artboard, you'll see these little you'll see kind of these intuitive symbols, I guess, pop up next to it, and it's going to tell you what's happening. So prepare to make a path as little x. We're seeing your board. We're seeing your board. Oh, we're seeing not board. Yeah, there you go. The plus sign is when you're midway through creating or editing a path, and when a mouse is pressed. So actually, let me open up Illustrator now so we can kind of take a look here, because I think that might be a good way to start here. So let me open up Illustrator. I'll share my screen here. Alrighty. So we just talked about, let me pull this out a little bit more. Don't forget to, up here you have this workspace option. Mine's on essentials, but let's say if you were working with typography, watch what happens when I select that. It changes all my panels that's based on typography. So it kind of brings up all the panels kind of related to typography. Same with web, there's layout, painting. Essentials is pretty much what it is. The essentials, the palettes that you would use. And you can customize that. So if you saved certain panels that you use all the time, you can customize that and say new workspace. You can name it, you know, you can even name it this class. And then every time you open this back up, all of the panels that you want are on here. You don't have to keep searching under window and opening them up. So it's just a little FYI there. Okay, so we were talking about the pen tool. So here we are with the pen tool in your toolbar. And the pen tool, if you click and select that click, you can see your other options down here that we talked about. So you have the pen tool, the add anchor point tool, delete anchor point, and then the anchor point tool. So if we start out with the pen tool, look at my pen tool and the little asterisk there. Right now it's telling me I didn't make a line yet, but once I start making that line, watch what happens when I'm making that line. The next line, you can see a little X there. I'm about to make another line. And then when I'm ready to close it, look how there's like a little circle next to my pen. That means I'm ready to close that shape. Okay? So that's what I was talking about in regards to those little intuitive things that pop up. Another thing is, let me open up here. So if I select the pen tool again or do a shortcut, so if I wanted to add an anchor point, let me zoom in here. As long as I'm selecting the add anchor point pen tool and I'm clicking right on that path, it's going to add more anchor points. Okay, so I can see that they kind of added these little boxes, little vector points. I can delete them, not subtract them, delete them. I can just choose the delete anchor point and just click right on top of that anchor to delete them. And then the anchor point tool looks like a little bird beak. You can actually click on the anchor, click and hold that selection down, hold that, the click down, the selection, and drag out your mouse or on your trackpad to pull out these handlebars is what they call them. And you can create this nice brazier line. Now wherever you end up going, you can kind of twist it around and try to make this curve and let it go when you're done. And you're not totally committed to that. If you needed to change that, all you needed to do was choose your direct selection tool, the white arrow here. Actually, you could probably choose the other one too, but direct selection tool allows you to move the individual anchor points, even not just the handlebars, okay? So you can go in and refine your line if need be. You can pull these in, one side in, one side out, as long as you're just kind of clicking right. The tricky thing about this is you really have to zoom in on your work because these are tiny little squares. You can also pull the handles in if you don't want, say, a curved line here, but you wanted a curved line here. You can pull in that little handlebar. Yep, you gotta zoom in. You gotta zoom, zoom, zoom. If you wanted to bring it back out, you just click on it. Oh, you gotta go to convert your anchor point tool again and just kind of drag it out. Okay. And if you didn't want any line, just pull these back into itself and you have no curved line. Okay, so a couple things to take a look at. You have the curvature tool, and this is kind of a neat tool to play around with. This actually gives you some really cool curves. And let me make sure this isn't filled here. I'll just grab a stroke here. So if you're clicking on the curvature tool, you can kind of make some really interesting curves without having to even worry about pulling out on the handlebars or creating a brazier curve. It just kind of flows as you're intuitively going around. It's kind of a neat thing to kind of play around with. So you can make a selection there, and as you're making that selection, you can actually lock in on a perfect circle. So it's kind of a neat shortcut for the most part if you're not doing shapes here. But that's definitely what the pen tool is all about. If you ever want to select the shape that you created and want to move it around, you would go back to the selection tool, V as your shortcut key, and you can kind of move that around. But you can change the size of this, by pulling out on the bounding box, but you can't individually change any of the vectors. You can't move them with the actual tool here. You have to use the direct selection tool. Click off of it and then click right back on it. Now we have to use the pen tool for the assignment and only the pen tool. Yes, I believe so. We can review that too. Good question though. So anyway, these are the intuitive signs that will kind of appear as you're doing each of these actions. Okay, so you get the, when you're ready to add an anchor point, you'll get the little plus sign, you know, and when hovering over existing anchor point, you'll see the little beak next to that plus sign as well. All right, have you guys ever played around with the width tool? All right. Width tool is pretty cool. Let me see if I actually have this link up here. Give me 1 second, guys. I thought I actually had this YouTube video up, but I guess I didn't. This just talks about the width tool, but if you are familiar with it, that's great. I'm sure you probably messed around with it at one point, but oops. Okay, hold on 1 second, guys. I thought I had this up. And it might not even work, so let me see. It's not available. Okay, we're just gonna take a look at it in Illustrator here. All right, so the width tool, I'm just gonna leave this up here. Hold on 1 second, guys. All right, so does anybody have any questions as far as what I went over so far? Let me click on my chat. Kind of went away here. Okay. Okay, great. All right, so that's where you would find your pen tool here. You actually have some other tools that are, I don't know if you ever check this out, which are similar in Photoshop here. You have your paintbrush tool, your blob brush tool, just a couple things to take a look at here. You have your line segment tools, if you ever played around with that. You have your type tool. We'll kind of talk about that later too. You have your shapes tool. You have your shaper tool, so there's some, you can kind of do some editing here if you're using the pencil tool. Eraser tool, scissors tool, and your knife. And this is where you can actually rotate or reflect. I'm just going to go through all these scaling and shearing, reshaping. This is where you would find your width tool. So if you do Shift and W on your keyboard. So the width tool is great because you can actually click on a regular line that has no variated width to it. Click right on that with that tool and drag out. Okay, Michael, thank you. And you can drag that out or in depending on kind of the way, you know, the kind of how you want it to look. And you can kind of play around with it. Once you select the width tool, you can kind of play around with the width or, you know, variation of it, how it kind of variates by clicking right on there. So it's kind of a neat tool to play around with. You get some really cool effects. You can click on several different areas to pull in and pull out. So some really cool things that you can kind of play around with. Thick and thin. And this is a tool that you'll definitely want to play around with whenever we are doing the assignment one. So you kind of get that variated width in your project so it doesn't look so flat and, you know, you want that nice dimension to it. So that's the width tool. Now there's other tools underneath that that kind of have their own kind of their own purposes here. We have the warp tool, and we can look at this later. Twirl tool, pucker, below, just a ton of really interesting tools to play around with. And then, of course, all these other tools as well. So you have the shaper tool, shape builder tool, sorry, your puppet warp tool, and a lot of these, oh, and here's your perspective grid. And a lot of these we will be kind of discussing as we go forward, especially the mesh tool here. We'll be doing, I think, on the next assessment one. You have your gradient tool, You have your sprayer tools. These are kind of neat to play around with. Your graphing tools. You have your crop tool and your slicing tool. You have your little hand here. Another thing, if you're zoomed in on your work, just like in Photoshop, and you don't really want to zoom back out, the shortcut would be either the space bar is your shortcut key for that. So you can kind of hit the space bar if you're on other tools here and you have this little grabber hand, and you can kind of hold that space bar down and grab the page to kind of navigate throughout. Or you could just take this hand and do the same thing, although that's kind of like you got to go back to this hand. So it's kind of like a weird, if it's a shortcut, you might as well just do the space bar. This is the magnifying tool. So obviously you can zoom in, zoom out. You can also do a zoom in, zoom out. If you're on a Mac, you could do a Command plus or a Command minus. This is your fill in your stroke. So if you're, creating let me get out of here. Hold on one second. If you're creating, say, a shape, oh, that was very loud. If you're creating a shape, let's say we're creating this square here, you can kind of reverse this out. It's kind of very similar to InDesign and all that good stuff. All right, this is just kind of your screen mode and how you're viewing your work. Everything else down here is kind of the switch behind normal behind mode. And then you can go quickly into these swatches if you wanted to give a gradient or a none fill. It's kind of like a nice little quick thing to how to edit that. You also have your layers, just like you would have in the other programs. So you can kind of group stuff together if you need to. And like I said, we'll kind of get into a lot of this other stuff as we go forward here, but I just wanted to show you some basic things, and especially with the pen tool and how to use it. That's okay, Marla, no problem. Any questions so far? It's pretty straightforward there. Okay. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? I'm going to get some water here for my throat, and we'll get back to it. Sound good? Maybe the internet will be working better for us. Okay. I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Okay, Marla, no problem. Whatever you miss, you can catch up on the recording. So your kid is in school? Did he start or did they start? I guess everybody's starting now, huh? And my 4-year-old's going to preschool, but it won't be till September. Yeah, it seems so early. I don't know why. I feel like summer never really was here. Where did summer go? You started 2 weeks ago? Wow. Jeez. And when do they get out? Wow. Well, that's pretty early. Yeah, it's so funny to hear all the different starting dates. I don't want to rush my daughter going to school, but it will be kind of nice to have some time, especially with work and everything. So no problem. Yeah, whatever you miss, pick it up with the recording. It's fine. Okay. Yeah, you're in Arizona, correct? Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of it's kind of different for sure, but I guess every school district's different. All right. Well, we're going to get right into assignment 1 then. We're going to get started here, and then Marla, whenever you need to go, you can go ahead and catch up with the recording. Yep. All right, so we're going to basically be doing some line artwork for this first project. So we're going to be really kind of focusing on the pen tool. It is a fundamental part of all graphic designers' toolkits. It provides the means to create smooth curves and beautiful vector drawings. Though the pen tool has been part of Illustrator from the beginning, the way it works and what it can do continues to evolve, change, and improve. We never had the width tool whenever I was learning Illustrator back, way back when I was in my undergrad. So, it is definitely changing and evolving and improving. So it is important that once in the field, designers keep up with advanced features, upgrades, and changes to the pen tool as they're inevitably put in place to increase productivity. That's a key there, and ease production. That's a key to your discussion. You could talk about the width tool. Yep, Illustrator 9 did not have it. That's funny. Yeah, I think I started on Illustrator 1. So yeah, I mean, I'm not dating myself or anything, but started at the beginning for sure. So yeah, I mean, you could talk about the width tool for your discussion and how it, saves you time, the old school way of doing it. So the pen tool is an essential part of Adobe Illustrator. It can be frustrating to learn at first, but developing a command of this tool is essential for success within Illustrator. In recent years, Adobe has introduced some advanced features to the pen tool. Okay, thank you, Marla. Have a great day. We're going to keep on plugging away here. So rubber banding or the path preview is one of these features. This feature allows designers to see exactly how the line will look before adding anchor points. For some who have been using Illustrator for many years, this adds confusion, not clarity. The feature can be controlled in the preference menu. Excuse me. Another advanced feature, is the ability to edit paths while drawing by holding down the Option Alt key and positioning the pointer over a path between 2 anchor points. Designers are given the ability to drag and reshape paths on the fly. Mastering and learning how to utilize these advanced features will not only make you more efficient, but will increase your drawing skills to create complex illustrations. Adobe continues to change and improve all of the tools within Illustrator. The pen tool now has several companion tools to help designers navigate complex shapes. The curvature tool we just saw in the demo here is one of these. The differences between the pen and curvature tool are minimal. In fact, many artists who have command of the pen tool don't use the curvature tool at all. The major difference is the curvature tool is a bit more intuitive than the pen tool, while the pen tool is more precise. While it is tempting to gravitate to one over the other as your main drawing tool of choice, mastering both will enable you to quickly sketch out ideas with the curvature tool while brainstorming and then moving to the pen tool, refining small details to finish up the illustration. All right, so for this assignment, you will create a portrait using only the pen tool. It will be a self-portrait or a drawing of a loved one or celebrity. Who you draw is up to you. Be sure to utilize variable widths, textured and or dotted and dashed lines as you draw to create interest, variation, and depth. You will be using this drawing in your week 2 assignment, so spend the time to really make this a possible portfolio piece, not just an exercise using the advanced pen tool options. Excuse me, guys. I'm going to take a drink here. Okay, so assignment instructions. So this assignment is to be created in Adobe Illustrator, of course. The finished size should be 8.5 by 11 inches. You're going to utilize a photograph of your subject for the template. Black and white line drawing only, no color, no grayscale. When complete, the subject should be easily recognizable in the drawing. Okay, submission requirements. You're going to name your assignment as such. And that's the native file, so .ai. With the template layer turned off, save a PDF version of the file named, and you turn that layer off because if you don't, it's going to show up in your PDF. Submit both the AI file with the image template and the PDF for grading. So you're going to save the template layer in AI, but when you're going to turn it off whenever you save it as a PDF for grading. Okay, and this is actually worth 120 points. Excuse me. The files below are PDFs showing an A-level work by fellow students. The examples are provided to illustrate the quality of work needed to get an A on this task. Copying from the samples is considered cheating. Use the examples to inform your plan to create your own work. Look at the pieces for feedback on what was done as well as what could be improved upon. So let's open up sample 1. Excuse me, guys. Let's zoom out here. Okay. Now, so there's sticky notes on these, just to kind of add feedback to what was submitted. But this is the original down below here image that was used, and then here is the the actual after. So you can see that this person is utilizing different widths of lines, different styles within the glasses, different line widths, say for the mustache, also for the hair. You can see the eyebrows have more of a dashed line appearance. So it's very stylistic. Okay, the next one, let me click on sample 2. Okay, that's the after. Here's the before. And then there's the after. So very simple, variated lines, not too much texture, but you can definitely see variations of lines where it's thick to thin. Just some suggestions here that you can definitely take a look at. I'm not quite sure why this says be careful to read the instructions Hair and shirt are filled shapes. Oh, okay. Yeah, just kind of make sure that you're using the pen tool and not using a shape tool. I guess that's kind of where those comments came from, but you can definitely create those shapes with the pen tool. So I'm a little confused by that. But anyway, those are two great examples to follow by. And then you can also go down here. I would really recommend you looking at the rubrics to kind of see if you're hitting upon all of these checkpoints. This is how I'm going to evaluate your work. So go ahead and read through this after you're creating your your image and ask yourself, how's the craftsmanship? Did I pay close attention to detail and properly use the tools required for the assignment? Is it creative? Is it original? Did you meet all the guidelines? All right, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be going over your assessment 1 tomorrow. So just kind of a heads up there. I'll just kind of break it up in between the two lectures. All right, so let's go over to Illustrator again. To open Illustrator when you're ready to go. Find an image that that you're excited about, and or your portrait, a portrait of yourself, something that you definitely can enjoy kind of working on here. Okay, so you're going to go File, New. You're going to do an 8.5 by 11. And I am going to place in my face in here. Let's see how this works because mine's a square. Let's see how this works here. And I just did File, Place, and I placed in my image over top. Now it's a square, so I have some cut off here. But what I'm going to do is actually in Layers panel, I'm going to make this a template layer. So I'm going to click on the upper right-hand corner of my drop-down preset menu here. And I'm going to say, I'm going to make that a template layer. And what happens when you make that layer a template layer, it locks the layer, and then it also makes it opaque so that now, this image isn't going to move. And I can kind of trace over it very easily because there's an opacity to it. The only thing I need to do at this point is say create new layer at the bottom, or up here on the top, say new layer. That way we can start working on it. So we're just going to leave this down here. You can rename it if you want template. It's completely up to you. But it's locked. So if you were to unlock it, you just kind of click on the lock button, and then you can kind of move it around if you want to, or you can lock it. It's completely up to you. But get a portrait of yourself. It can be somebody that your family members or whatever, and or a celebrity. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and name this before I forget. DES380, assignment 1, first and last name. Excuse me. All right, so I think one of the biggest things that I'm going to say at first, the biggest, most important thing to do is really zoom in on your work when you're dealing with the pen tool especially, okay? Zoom in. I would also suggest, before you zooming into the smaller details, start working on the bigger details first. So maybe the shape of the face, the body, the hair is first, and then you go into the smaller details. That kind of is the, excuse me, the working working path I would take. Just I think it's a little bit easier to follow. Like I said, I'm dealing with a cold here, so it's like one of those things. All right. So you can either start with the pen tool, or you can even do the curvature tool. And you can start, say, let's do the face here. Now, what's nice about the curvature tool is it's going to, kind of intuitively give you a nice option to create this line. You can zoom in on this if you want, but it's completely up to you. I think the face is a little easier to outline, not so zoomed in. Oops, undo that. Hold the shift key down. I'm sorry, not the shift key. We don't want that edge there. We're just gonna have to fix this. All right, so I just made that shape. Now I wanna go in and change this and fix it. So I'm gonna take the direct selection tool. I'm gonna zoom in here because I don't want this to be as curved here. And I'm gonna fix this handle here. I'm gonna pull this down and in because I don't need a curve there. So I'm just gonna kind of adjust the same thing here. I'm gonna pull that in. I can delete, say, you know, if I made too many, like this one, for instance, I could take my pen tool, delete anchor point, and I can kind of get rid of that one. And then once I do, I start refining certain areas in here that might make it look a little smoother. You can also use your arrow tools to bump in and bump out if you want to make small bump changes. But kind of, you know, play around with it. If you see any weird areas, you can zoom in tightly and start refining your edges here. That looks pretty good. All right. I would say just start with this first, you know, outline this, and then we can go in and do details to this. As far as like the variable width and all that good stuff. Oops, delete that. If you want to get rid of an anchor point, you just hit the delete. All right, so I'm kind of using this tool a little bit more than other tool, or the pen tool, but you get the gist here. And I'm just gonna make this up here, and then I need to fix it, of course, because the curvature tool is going to give me too many curves that I don't need just in certain spots. So I just need to go in here and refine it. You have to make sure that you're clicking right on that vector point to change it. If it's only one, it can get kind of a little hairy there. Okay, so I'm just kind of adjusting my line here. I'm going to get rid of anything that looks kind of weird. Give it a nice smoother line here. There we go. All right, I kind of didn't purposely close this line. And I actually could get rid of, let me see if I can do this, might be better. Oops. If I wanted to cut this, for instance, like if I want to cut this so it's no longer a line, let me show you how to do that. Get your scissors tool, and go ahead and cut your lines and hit delete. Say I don't want it, this line, I click right over top of that and hit delete. We're gonna do this again. Because I don't want to fill, the reason why is I want to kind of do a different style for this. Okay, let's do, get rid of that. So we're gonna get rid of that, all that work. Here we go. So that would be one line, and then I could do another line here. And just leave it at that. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to take the regular pen tool just for show here. And I can move that there. Okay. Getting those details in there. And then, of course, the neckline. So what I would say is I would suggest, turning on some music, get into the groove. You guys are going to be, doing a lot of detail work here. It's always good to kind of add music into the mix when you're doing detail work. I can even maybe add in the necklace here. And then this is where the curvature tool would actually come into play nicely. Oops. See how easy that was to do that shape? So there you go. Oops. Let me get rid of some of these points here. So I'm going to take my delete anchor point if I didn't want to go all the way down here. I can fix that. Okay. Then I probably do maybe my ear. Some ear work there. I'm not going to worry about the details in the background. I'm just kind of worried about the big shapes for now. So I think that's pretty good. Let me save this. And like I said, I'm going to kind of worry about the width and depth and all that in a second, a second here. Then, it's up to you kind of where you want to go. Maybe start with the lips. I don't know, kind of see how that would pan out there. Oops. I think for this, I'm probably just going to use the zoom in. I'm going to use my pen tool here. Now we might change this based on kind of like the styles that we want to add on here, but for the most part, we're going to get this in here. So it's a lot of just tweaking some stuff here. This is where I would use the width tool. So if I were to play around with the width tool, I'd take the width tool at this point and pull out in the sections that I think could have a little bit more width in the middle here. You can always go back and play around with that, add more to it or less. You can even go in opposite direction, so you're making it thinner on each side, pulling in. Okay. Oops. Pull this up just slightly here. Like I said, the keys, the arrow tools on the keys can definitely help nudge some lines, one way or the other. Okay. Now we're going to make the little dimples here. Oops. And again, this would be good for the width tool. Play around with this. Same thing here. Zoom in on that. If you ever wanted to adjust this, zooming in definitely helps. And you can kind of rotate this little line here based on kind of the effect that you want. All right. Now for the nose. So zoom in on the nose here. Now the nose is tricky. I probably would just do the lines that are very simple, like around the nostril area here. You know, you don't want to make too much because then it looks kind of weird. You want it to be simple. We're gonna fix that here in a second. What's nice is you can always kind of adjust this, so you're not stuck to what you have originally. You can kind of play around with it and adjust it. Okay. The bridge of the nose. You know, I just do something like this where it's just a simple line. So you know where the nose kind of is. Okay, the eyes. I would definitely do a couple, like for instance, this one, I probably trace the outline of the eye first. And you don't have to do the whole outline of the eye either. It's kind of how you want to do it stylistically. You know, if you want to kind of keep it an open shape, that's fine as well. And again, this is where the curvature line will come into place or come into play here. Let me start this again here. I'm going to move this over here for a sec. And you can add these to different layers, although I wouldn't go too crazy because sometimes we get a little bit too crazy and then the details too detailed. All right, so now I can go in and kind of massage this, change it, taking the convert anchor tool. Kind of changing it up. All right, and then I would take and do like kind of the outline here. This is an added line here. Now I'm going to take the anchor point, over anchor point here. So I'm going to delete this anchor point, I think. So it's getting a little crazy. So add simplicity to this. Okay, so that would be the eye. You could do something really simple here for the eyebrow. You could do, let's see, strokes. You go up to window and go to your stroke. Show options. You could do different lines here. You can add lines to it as well. You do width here. You can change the width. You can change the way that the ends of the line appear. So maybe they're not but they're round instead. You do dashed lines. You can add the line, dashed lines can be smaller than this. Doesn't have to be 12 point, it can be 6, 2. Can I play around with it? These are the gaps in between. You can play around with the width of it too. Like, for instance, the width of this. If I got bigger, you'd kind of see a little bit better. There we go. You can also change this line if you kind of need to do that. There's like there we go. The width kind of changes there. Let me see. Based on the pen. Oh, based on the option that I just picked here. Let's do. Okay. Same thing over here. You could do the same thing, although my eyebrow is cut off here, so I'm just dealing with that. I forget what width I had that on. Had that on. Excuse me. There we go. And then adjust it accordingly to the perspective and all that good stuff. Okay, so that's another way you can do that. Okay, I'm going to do the curvature pen tool first here. Nice line there. Oh, you want it to be not dashed. I'm going to go in here and fix this because I think that needs to be refined a little bit. All right, so hopefully you guys kind of get the idea of different things that you can do and just kind of zooming in, refining your vector points here. I'm kind of trying to fix this a little bit here. Like I said, the less points you have, the more smooth the line will be. So that's the tricky part. So I always kind of want to add more all the time. more isn't always good, so it's one of those battles that you deal with here. And then do a little flippity do. Like right here, I think I just added too many here. See, I do it too. Just have to rework it, delete that anchor point, smooth everything out a little bit better, and go from there. All right, save this. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to go in and get some variated widths here and some texture. So let's start with the hair. So there's different ways that I can do this. Again, I can go up to the stroke panel box. Let's see here. I'm just going to keep it simple. Oops, stroke panel box. Make it simple, and we are going to do we're just going to play around with the width tool, I think. So let's take this back to a 1 point. And I'm going to take the width tool here. Where is it? There we go. And I'm going to make it heavier on the bottom per my hair. Kind of like a thicker look. Same thing here. Maybe go the other way. Oops. There we go. And again, you can kind of play around with this a little bit more. Zooming in always helps. You can delete it if you don't want that particular selection. Just hit delete on your keyboard. And then you can always still kind of play around with the line here if it's not quite what you want. You play around with that as well. So that's that part of the hair. All right, so very simple little changes. You can always refine it. Oh, that looks kind of funny. Plus in just a slight tad amount here. There we go. Do a little wave there. I might want to do the same thing here. Just a little wave, little flow, like hair. Okay. Then the necklace, you know, I could do a dashed line here too. Give it like a variable dashed line look here. And all kinds of different options. Do really small. Very big. Different things there. Okay. I'm going to do a width tool again. I'm going to pull this out so it's kind of as one side is bigger than the other. And then this is the neck part. I'm going to make this, because it is the neck part, just kind of simple line. Maybe pull it in just a little bit on each side, but keep it simple. Oh, maybe just the one side. I think that might look good. All right, because this is the neck. This is more of hair. Okay. Do this ear. Maybe the lobe. Oops. Maybe the lobe here is a little thicker. And let's give it a rounded corner. So it kind of rounded instead of being a flat. If this is going in a little bit too far, I can bring this out. There we go. Let's save it. Okay. The last one of the hair. It's pretty good. Now I'm going to go to the face, and I'm going to give, you can kind of keep this pretty thin, or you can kind of play around with the width again. Just keep the real thin around certain areas. Let me see what this looks like if I play around with just the, okay. So I gave it like a thicker part down here. Now I can always change this. Always make it really, really thin up here. Same with this. You know, and that way I don't look like I have a beard. Let's see how that came out. I don't want it to be too thick because, yeah, it looks kind of strange. So I'm gonna pull this in a little bit. Okay, but I do want some width there. So it's gonna affect the rest of it. If you want to quickly see what this is gonna look like, see how you're doing, progressing, you can throw another layer behind that and then hide. Actually, you don't even have to do that. What are you doing? Go back. You just hide this template layer. Just see the differences there. Okay. The eyes are a little tricky. Let's do the lips here first. Don't do that. Some are thinner than the others. There we go. That really thin there. Might even want to just take out, like cut this path here. So I'm going to take my scissors tool. I'm just going to cut this and this. And get rid of that. And that way I can kind of stylize this a little bit better. Oops. the nose, the nose. Very simple. Yeah. And then I just zooming in on the eyes. This is a little bit of a trickier part here because you want to get the eyes kind of perfect to what you have in the picture. You don't have to necessarily always do the full outline like I did here. Let's see. You can do the width tool for that as well. Put this in. See how it looks, and then take your curvature. Oops. I'm going to do white. I'm just going to add, oops. I'm going to add a new layer here. I'm going to click on this eyeball. I'm going to do it on this layer. Actually, let me just move this way. Okay, same thing over here. All right. Moving right along. So hopefully this kind of gave you some ideas of what you can do, you know, approaching this project. Excuse me. Going forward here. All right. It's kind of a weird shape that I just made here. Let me do this again. And get a good grasp on that here. That's much better. There we go. Pull this down a little bit. Pull these out a little bit. We're good to go. And we're gonna make this white. All right, so you can see like the eyeball area is not similar to that, so I'll have to go back and fix that. Little tweaks. I'm not sure what I did here. But I'm going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to reflect this. This is another way you can do it. I'm going to reflect it. Oops. And then rotate it. So they're kind of working with the same thing here. Okay, and this. All right. So you saw I just kind of copied and pasted that in there. Maybe even just copy and pasting this too, just making it very consistent. I can grab it. All right, getting there. It's definitely getting there. I might want to shorten some areas here. And delete some anchor points. There we go. That was a little bit better. One thing I probably would do is just, if I do that, I'm going to put this up here. Just going to make it like, same thing here. Oops, let's delete this. Like half the face there. All right. So, you know, just kind of play around with those tools, the pen tool, the curvature tool, you know, play around with the dash lines. We don't really want to see any gradients. If anything, you know, you're just using the pen tool. So when you're ready to save this out, you know, obviously you're going to save this as an AI file and keep the template there. But when you save it as a PDF, hide the template layer and save file, save as, choose PDF, that's yours fine. So when I open up your PDF file. I'm not seeing the actual original image in there, but you will have it in your AI file. All right, and don't forget to submit the AI file as well as the PDF for this project. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm gonna wrap this up. We will be meeting tomorrow very early. I believe if you're Eastern Standard Time, it's 10 o'clock. That means it's 8 o'clock Mountain Time in the morning. And we're gonna go over your assessment 1. And if you have any other questions about what I kind of covered today, you can definitely ask me as well. All right, guys, have a great night.